Imagine trying to sleep in perfect silence, punctuated by bells that refuse to mind their own business. Welcome to a night at a medieval monastery, where silence isn't just a virtue, it's the very essence of daily life. Picture this. You've just arrived, and the first thing that hits you is the stillness. Not the peaceful kind, mind you. No, this is a deep, almost oppressive silence. The kind that makes you feel like every breath you take is too loud, too noticeable. The walls are thick, stone, and cold-absorbing sound, like a sponge. The air is damp. The scent of incense lingers from the evening prayers, and the flicker of candlelight casts long, dancing shadows on the walls. It's a bit eerie, to be honest. Here, monks spend their days in devotion, and their nights in solemn reflection. They live by a schedule so strict it could give modern-day time managers a run for their money. Their life revolves around hours of prayer, work, and more prayer. And sleep? Well, sleep is an afterthought, a brief interlude between the never-ending toll of the bells and the constant whisper of psalms echoing through the halls. It's a delicate dance between devotion, discipline, and the ever-present ringing of bells. And when I say ever-present, I mean ever-present. The bells don't just toll once or twice a day. Oh no. They remind you of your place in the universe every few hours, like the most punctual and least sympathetic alarm clock in history. So, grab your robe and slippers, and let's settle in. We're about to step into a world where the only thing more sacred than prayer is the relentless schedule that governs every waking moment. And every sleeping moment too, whether you like it or not. Welcome to History Lullaby, where we journey back in time to explore the fascinating, often humorous, and sometimes downright strange corners of history. If you're ready to discover what life was like in a medieval monastery, where silence reigns supreme but sleep is constantly interrupted, then buckle up, because it's going to be a long, quiet night. And trust me, it's not just the bells you'll be listening to. As you approach the abbey, the first thing that strikes you is the profound peace. The looming stone door, weathered with time, stands like a sentinel between the world and the sanctuary beyond. It is the kind of door that speaks of centuries of history, of monks who have entered and departed, of pilgrims who have sought refuge and solace within these walls. As you push it open, there's a subtle creak, a reminder that this space is ancient and well-worn, yet still steadfast in its purpose. Stepping inside is like entering a different realm, one defined not by the bustling world outside, but by something altogether quieter and more sacred. The cold stone floor meets your feet with a firm chill, grounding you to the earth and reminding you of the monastery's durability. The air is thick with the scent of incense, so heavy that it feels almost tangible. You inhale deeply, and the rich smell of frankincense mingles with the faint, earthy aroma of tallow candles burning in the chapel. The air feels both comforting and ancient, as though every breath you take here is somehow shared with generations of monks who walk these very halls. The silence of the abbey is all-encompassing. It is not the dead, oppressive silence of a place abandoned, but a silence filled with intent. Every footstep you take seems to echo through the stone corridors, amplifying the stillness that surrounds you. The peacefulness is so profound that it feels as if the world outside has ceased to exist. The noise, the rush, the clamor, all of it has been left behind. You are led to the refectory, the monk's dining hall, by a quiet monk who gestures for you to follow him. The low murmur of voices fills the space as you walk. This is no ordinary dining hall. It is both a place for sustenance and a venue for contemplation. The walls are made of the same stone that has seen centuries pass by. The wooden beams above you creak slightly as if they have stories to tell. And the faint light from the candles casts long shadows across the room, adding to the sense of mystery. The monk leads you to a bench where others are already seated, their heads bowed in quiet prayer before the meal. You notice the sparse, yet carefully arranged, wooden tables. The monks do not indulge in lavish meals. Instead, the food is plain and simple. The meal consists of bread, thick soup, and perhaps a small wedge of cheese. The bread is hearty and brown, dense and nourishing. The soup is thick, with vegetables and perhaps a hint of some humble meat. It's not much, but it's enough. It is food for the soul, as much as it is for the body. As you sit down and begin to eat, The quiet hum of the room envelops you. The monks speak little. Instead, their murmurs of prayer create a harmonious backdrop to the meal, blending with the clink of spoons against bowls. There is no idle chatter here, no stories of the outside world, no discussion of daily affairs. There is only the soft rhythm of prayer, the sounds of the meal, and the occasional cough or clearing of the throat. You take a small bite of the bread, savoring its rustic flavor. It is nothing like the fine loaves you have had in the cities. This is the bread of the monastery, sturdy, humble, and dependable. Each bite carries with it the weight of tradition, the unspoken understanding that this food, like the monks' lives, is dedicated to something greater. The quiet feels comforting. You don't need to fill the silence with words. Here, silence is sacred, just as much a part of the meal as the bread and soup. The evening meal draws to a close, and you feel the weight of the calm settle deeper within you. There is no rush, no pressing need to be somewhere else. The monks rise slowly, one by one, and silently make their way out of the refectory. The ritual of the meal is complete, and now the time has come to retreat to your cell for the night. You follow the monk down the corridor, your footsteps slow and deliberate, matching the pace of those around you. You're shown to your cell, a simple room with nothing but the barest of essentials. The bed is a humble frame made of wood, with a mattress stuffed with straw. There is no plush pillow, no soft blankets. Instead, there is a woolen blanket folded at the foot of the bed, ready to provide warmth for the night. The walls are bare, the floor cold, and the only window is small and narrow, casting a sliver of light from outside. The room is sparse, stripped of anything unnecessary. There is no luxury here, no adornment to soften the starkness of the stone. But there is something peaceful in the simplicity. The cell is not meant to be a place of comfort, but a space for reflection and devotion. This is where you will sleep, but it's also where you will meditate, pray, and consider the path ahead. As you settle into the bed, the straw poking uncomfortably through the wool blanket, you notice the faint toll of the matins bell in the distance. It's not yet time for the prayers, but it is a reminder of what's to come, what always comes in the monastery. The bell rings again, deep and resonant, reverberating through the stone walls. It's a sound that commands attention, a call to prayer that will interrupt any semblance of sleep. But as you lie there, preparing yourself for the inevitable wakefulness that will come with the ringing of the bells, you realize that the noise of the world outside has already faded. The demands of daily life have been left behind. Here in the monastery, everything revolves around the bell, the prayer, and the silence. The outside world may be chaotic, but here, there is a rhythm to life, one that is governed by devotion and discipline. You close your eyes, the cold stone against your back reminding you that comfort is a fleeting luxury. But you are not here for comfort. You are here for something greater. And as you listen to the bell tolling in the distance, you allow the stillness of the abbey to wash over you. Tonight, sleep will be brief, and tomorrow will begin before dawn. But here in this sacred space, the rhythm of life continues. And you, like all the monks who have walked these halls before you, are part of it. As night falls, you make your way to the dorter, the communal dormitory where the monks sleep. The room is vast, its stone walls seemingly immortal, holding the weight of centuries of prayer. The floor beneath your feet is rough-hewn wood, worn from the tread of countless monks who have walked these floors before you. The space, lit only by the flickering flames of a few candles, smells faintly of straw, tallow, and sweat. No surprise given the long day's labor that's just finished. The beds in the dorter are simple, wooden frames filled with straw and covered in woolen blankets. There are no soft mattresses or pillows to comfort your tired body, just the barest essentials to survive the night and awaken at dawn for another day of prayer, work, and discipline. The bedding is frugal but functional, designed to remind you that comfort is a luxury in the eyes of devotion. The monks here are accustomed to it, but for you, the lack of softness in the bedding and the chill in the air are jarring. The room is starkly divided. Each monk has a space marked out, but there is little privacy to speak of. Beds are crammed close together in rows, with only the thin line of a straw mattress separating you from the monk next to you. The silence in the room is almost suffocating as you find your place. There are no walls between the beds, and no dividers of any kind. It's a community space where you will share not just the night, but the prayers, thoughts, and devotion of the monks around you. As you lie on your bed of straw, The smell of tallow from the candles and the soft rustle of the other monks shifting on their beds create a rhythm that lulls you into a state of semi-consciousness. You hear soft whispers of prayers, some whispered aloud, some muttered under breath. The monks here, practiced in their devotions, find peace in silence, using these moments to reflect on the day and prepare for the next set of prayers. You close your eyes, hoping for some semblance of sleep, but the silence around you seems to grow louder. The stone walls feel cold, the floor hard against your back, and the blanket doesn't offer the warmth you crave. Just as you begin to settle into a somewhat uncomfortable state of rest, the bells toll once again. The sound echoes across the stone halls, reverberating through the walls. It's time for matins, the first prayer of the night. The bell rings loud and clear, calling the monks to prayer. The tolling breaks the silence of the night, and you feel the chill of the stone floor beneath you as you pull yourself from your bed. You see the monks around you stirring, each one rising from their straw beds with the same quiet devotion. You follow their lead and head toward the chapel, though your body protests, still heavy from the long day and uncomfortable bed. As you enter the chapel, you are met with the soft glow of candlelight and the deep, comforting silence of the place. The sound of your sandals scraping along the stone floor seems to disrupt the sacred stillness, but it's quickly swallowed by the low murmur of the monks' voices as they gather for matins. The chapel is dark except for the flickering light of the candles placed strategically around the room, casting long shadows across the stone walls. The scent of incense hangs in the air, mixing with the faint traces of the tallow candles and the musty smell of the stone. The monks gather in rows, kneeling on the cold stone floor. You kneel beside them, joining in the rhythmic chants of psalms and prayers that have been recited for centuries. The sound of their voices fills the space, blending together in a deep, hypnotic rhythm that seems to lull your mind, even as your body aches from the cold stone beneath you. The chanting echoes off the walls, creating a timeless atmosphere, one where the ancient tradition of devotion feels alive, as if it were unfolding for the first time. As you join in the prayers, you begin to feel the weight of history pressing down upon you. The rituals of devotion are centuries old, and you are a part of that long lineage. It's a strange feeling, one of awe and humility. You feel connected to the monks around you, but you also feel the isolation that comes with the silence and the solitude of this sacred space. It's a feeling that is at once uncomfortable and oddly reassuring. The monks chant on, their voices rising and falling in unison. You find yourself swept up in the rhythm of the prayers, your mind slowly quieting as you become absorbed in the devotion of the moment. The darkness of the chapel, the flickering candlelight, and the steady flow of prayer begin to wash over you. The aches in your body, the discomfort of the bed, and the cold of the stone floor begin to fade into the background, overshadowed by the quiet power of the prayers. Eventually, matins comes to an end, and the monks rise from their knees, returning to the dormitory. The stillness returns, but it's not long before the bells toll again. It's time for the next prayer. Lauds, the second prayer of the night. The rhythm of the monastery is unyielding, and there is no escaping the calls to prayer that punctuate the hours of darkness. You return to your cell, your body heavy with fatigue, but your mind wide awake. The silence of the monastery is almost suffocating, and you realize just how much you depend on the noise of the outside world to fill the gaps in your thoughts. But here, in the monastery, silence is a gift that brings with it both peace and discomfort. You settle back onto your bed, the straw poking through the woolen blanket, and try to find some comfort in the stillness. As the hours pass, you begin to drift in and out of sleep. The chill of the room seeps into your bones, but the rhythm of the bells and the prayers keeps you tethered to this strange and sacred world. The monastery is both a place of devotion and a place of hardship, where silence and solitude are as much a part of the experience as prayer and work. In the stillness of your cell, you lie awake, listening to the sounds of the monastery, the soft shuffle of sandals on the stone floor, the occasional cough or rustle of robes, and the faint hum of prayer from the other monks. The cold stone beneath you feels even colder as you shift in your bed, but you know that this discomfort is part of the monastic life. It's not about comfort, it's about devotion, discipline, and the quiet peace that comes with living a life set apart from the world. The bells toll once again, signaling the start of lauds, You rise from your bed, your body protesting the cold stone floor, and make your way back to the chapel. The cycle continues, as it always has, in a rhythm that is both comforting and relentless. The night stretches on, but for the monks, this is just another night of devotion, another night of silence, and another night of prayer. For you, it's a night of discomfort, but it's also a night of connection. Connection to something larger, something older, something sacred. The tolling of the bells reverberates through the cold stone walls of the abbey, an unyielding call to prayer. The hour is late far from dawn, but the monastery's rhythm is constant. Matins, the first prayer of the night, is upon you. As you lie in the shared dormitory, the familiar clang of the bell pulls you from the relative warmth of your blanket. The monks around you stir in quiet unison, their movements precise and familiar. It's almost as though the bell has become part of their very being, a signal as natural as the rising and setting of the Sunday. You hear the soft rustle of robes, the quiet shuffle of bare feet on the cold, hard stone floors, and the occasional sigh of exhaustion. The air is thick with the scent of tallow candles and incense, the smell of devotion and humble living. As you slip out of your bed, the straw mattress poking at your skin through the coarse wool blanket, you feel a dull chill seeping into your bones. The monastery is built of stone, and the coldness of the night clings to it, especially at this hour when there's no warmth from the sun to alleviate it. The chapel awaits, its doors open just wide enough for you to slip through, joining the monks who have already gathered. You're not alone, but it feels as if you are. The sound of their feet, the faint rustling of robes, and the distant echoes of the bells fading into the night are the only noises accompanying you. The chapel, dimly lit by the flickering candlelight, seems to take on a life of its own. The flickering light casts long shadows across the stone walls, making them appear even colder and more oppressive. As you enter the chapel, the silence is overwhelming. But it is not the discomfort of silence, it is the sanctity of it, the deep reverence that permeates the space. The monks are already lined up in neat rows, their heads bent, their voices rising and falling in a low, harmonious chant. The sound fills the chapel, echoing off the stone walls and reverberating through your body. It's both calming and overwhelming. The steady rhythm of their chanting, the familiar sounds of ancient psalms sung in Latin. The chants pulse through the room like a heartbeat, and you begin to feel as though you're part of it all, part of this centuries-old tradition. The words of the psalms are foreign to you, but the rhythm of the chants is easy enough to follow. The monks kneel and rise in unison, their movements slow and deliberate. Each one is practiced as the next. You kneel with them, your body stiff from the cold stone floor beneath you. It is a test of endurance, a sacrifice of comfort in the name of devotion. As your knees press against the stone, a dull ache forms, and you can't help but wonder how long they can endure this physical discomfort without it distracting from their worship. But the monks do not seem to mind. Their devotion is unwavering, and their bodies are used to the discomfort. The coldness of the stone, the roughness of the floor, and the hardness of the surface beneath you are all part of the experience. In a way, it's fitting everything in this life is about simplicity and discipline. It is not about comfort. It is about focusing on the divine, on prayer, and on the connection to something larger than yourself. You can feel the weight of the tradition pressing down upon you. And although your body longs for rest, your mind is slowly being drawn into the flow of devotion. The psalms continue, the monks' voices rising and falling in time with the rhythm of their breath. Their faces are serene, their eyes focused on something beyond the physical. The sound of the chanting is so soothing that, despite your body's protests, you begin to feel the weariness fade away, replaced by a quiet sense of peace. This is not sleep, it's something deeper, a kind of wakeful rest, a state between the mundane world and the sacred. But it's not long before the discomfort creeps back. The cold stone beneath you begins to feel sharper. The flickering candlelight grows faint, and the weight of the night starts to press in on you. You shift in place, trying to find a more comfortable position, but there is none to be had. Your thoughts wander briefly to the warm bed of straw in the dormitory, to the sweet relief of lying down and resting your body. But that thought is fleeting. You remind yourself why you're here, to pray, to connect, to focus on the divine, and push through the discomfort. The psalms continue, and with them, a quiet determination to persevere. The bell tolls once again, signaling the end of matins, and the monks rise from their knees, their movements slow and deliberate. You follow their lead, making your way back to the dormitory. The silence of the chapel remains in the air, lingering like the scent of incense. It's not an oppressive silence, but a peaceful one, a silence that invites you to reflect and prepare for the rest of the night's prayers. As you return to your cell, the familiar sounds of the monastery begin to fade away. The soft creak of doors closing, the distant murmur of prayers, and the rustle of robes are replaced by the quiet of your own thoughts. You return to your straw mattress, the cold stone beneath you as uncomfortable as before, and settle in for the next part of the night. The silence envelops you once more, but this time, it's a silence of peace, a silence that prepares you for the next toll of the bell, the next call to prayer, and the next step on your journey through the monastery's rhythm. The bells toll again, and you rise. Matins may have ended, but the night is far from over. There's still much more devotion, prayer, and discipline to be endured before the morning light breaks through the cold stone walls. You settle into the night's rhythm, knowing that sleep will not come easily, but peace can still be found in the quiet between the prayers. After matins, you prepare for the cold cloister walk, a ritual that is part meditation, part vigilance, and entirely humbling. As you step out from the warmth of the dormitory, the frigid night air bites at your cheeks and nose, and the stone floor beneath your sandals seems to draw the chill deeper into your bones. The faint glow of candles flickers in the hands of the monks walking beside you, their light casting long, wavering shadows on the high stone walls. The air is crisp, sharp enough to make each breath feel like a small gift, each exhale a visible testament to your living presence. The cloister itself is a long, rectangular corridor, open to the elements on one side but enclosed by the towering walls of the monastery on the other. Arches frame the night sky above. A scattering of stars glimpsed through the darkness, teasing you with the world beyond these walls. Your footsteps echo softly in the space, joined by the gentle shuffle of the monk's sandals. Every footfall seems amplified in this stillness, a reminder of the discipline required simply to move in such a sacred space. The chill is pervasive. It penetrates the layers of wool and linen, seeping into the marrow of your bones. You hug your arms across your chest, trying to preserve the warmth stolen by the night. But the sensation of cold is relentless. Every breath produces a faint fog, a ghostly veil that drifts above the stone path. The world outside has disappeared. The market, the fields, the village chatter, and all that remains is the cloister, its walls, and the rhythm of your own footsteps. Despite the cold, there is a beauty here. The symmetry of the arches, the worn texture of the stone, the soft flicker of candlelight dancing across ancient carvings creates a visual hymn in itself. Your eyes adjust to the darkness, and you begin to notice the details. The moss that clings stubbornly to a corner, the iron hinges glinting dimly in the candlelight, the subtle curve of a column worn smooth by centuries of feet. Every surface, every shadow, seems to hold stories, a history of monks who have passed this way before you, performing the same ritual, walking the same path in devotion. As you walk, your mind begins to follow the rhythm of the night. The cloister is not just a passageway, it is a meditative journey. The cold forces focus. The silence, once overwhelming, becomes a partner in reflection. Each step, each shuffle of sandals, is measured, deliberate, almost musical in its consistency. The monks around you move with the same precision, their hands tucked into their robes or clasped in quiet prayer, eyes focused ahead or bowed in contemplation. You sense a unity here, a shared commitment to a life that demands presence, patience, and attention to the sacred rhythm of time. The soundscape is minimal but intricate. There is the soft scrape of sandals on stone, the distant murmur of chanting echoing faintly from the chapel, the occasional creak of a wooden door in the dormitory, and the whisper of the wind brushing through the arches. Each sound is isolated, distinct, yet woven together into a symphony of monastic nightlife. You realize that in this quiet, every noise has significance. The wind is a gentle reminder of the outside world. The rustle of a robe signals life moving in synchrony, and the distant bells punctuate the silence with purpose. Despite the serenity, the cold cloister walk is also a test of endurance. Your muscles stiffen, your feet ache against the unyielding stone, and the chill nips at any exposed skin. Yet this discomfort is part of the lesson. Monastic life trains both body and mind, and the physical hardship of the cloister walk is inseparable from its spiritual purpose. Endurance becomes meditation. Awareness of the body becomes awareness of the soul. As you continue, your eyes adjust further, and you begin to notice the interplay of light and shadow in the cloister. Candlelight bounces off the walls, highlighting the subtle carvings and the rough texture of the stone. Shadows stretch and bend with each movement, creating the illusion of life where there is only stillness. For a moment, you almost think you see a figure at the far end of the corridor, only to realize it's a trick of the flickering flame. The environment itself becomes a teacher, reminding you that perception is delicate and that the mind can wander even in the stillness of devotion. The path through the cloister is lined with small alcoves niches carved into the stone for prayer or reflection. Some hold statues of saints, their faces worn smooth by centuries of touch and reverence. Others are empty, silent reminders of absence and devotion alike. The air carries a faint aroma of incense from the chapel, mingled with the cold stone scent of the building itself. Each inhalation grounds you in the present, each exhale a release of the world beyond these walls. As you walk in silence, you also become aware of the shared experience. The monks are not merely walking, they are participating in a ritual that binds them together. Even though conversation is forbidden, there is a sense of communal presence, an invisible thread that links each person along the cloister. You feel a part of something larger than yourself, part of a tradition that stretches across centuries. The cold becomes less of a punishment and more of a reminder that devotion requires both sacrifice and attention. The rhythm of the walk is deliberate, slow, measured steps punctuated by the faint scrape of sandals. Each turn around the cloister's corners brings a new perspective. Sometimes the far end seems endless, sometimes intimate and confining. The repetition itself becomes meditative. You begin to notice your own breath, the rising and falling of your chest, the subtle sounds of your heartbeat mingling with the ambient noise. The cold, once sharp and biting, becomes a companion in focus, teaching patience and endurance. Along the way, you encounter elements of the monastery's life that are not immediately visible in the dormitory or chapel. You pass by the garden plots maintained by the monks for herbs and vegetables, their silhouettes dark against the night sky. You see the careful stacking of firewood along the cloister wall, the simple tools laid ready for morning labor. These glimpses of practical life remind you that monastic devotion is holistic. Prayer is intertwined with labor, reflection is accompanied by routine, and the sacred is present in the simplest acts of care. The cold cloister walk also carries a psychological dimension. It teaches humility. Your body is weak, your breath visible in the chill, your feet aching from the unyielding stone. Yet it also teaches resilience. Each step is deliberate, each movement conscious. You become aware of the duality of the monastery. It is both sanctuary and challenge, a place where comfort is secondary to growth, where endurance and reflection are inseparable. The passage of time is tangible here. Minutes stretch in the cold, punctuated by the occasional distant toll of a bell. You realize that in this silence, time feels different, more fluid, more measured, more meaningful. The night is elongated, every second carrying weight. The cloister walk is a pause between the prayers, a bridge between the dormitory and the chapel, between sleep and devotion. You begin to understand that the monk's night is not a simple rest period. It is a tapestry woven from intention, endurance, and contemplation. Even the cold itself has a lesson. It reminds you that the body is not the master of devotion. The mind and spirit are. Each shiver, each ache, each sensation of frost against the skin is an invitation to focus, to meditate, to let the body recede while the mind engages with the sacred. You notice how the monks move through this space, careful, deliberate, respectful of one another and of the silence. There is a rhythm to their steps that is almost musical, a choreography of faith that has been honed over generations. As you near the end of the cloister walk, you feel the cold retreating slightly, replaced by a warmth that comes from accomplishment and focus. You return to the dormitory, your breath steadied, your mind sharpened. The silence remains, now accompanied by a sense of peace that is deeper than mere comfort. The night continues, And soon the matins bell will toll again, drawing you into the next ritual of devotion. But for now, in the quiet of the cold cloister, you have experienced a night that is at once physically challenging, spiritually enriching, and profoundly grounding. After matins, the monastery feels both heavier and lighter at the same time. The weight of devotion lingers like a tangible fog, yet the quiet allows the mind to stretch beyond the walls of your cell. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders and step out into the cloister. The night air hits like a slap, cold, biting, and sharp enough to remind every muscle, every joint, that you are very much alive. Your breath rises in little clouds that float just long enough to form brief, ghostly patterns before dispersing into the darkness. The cloister is a rectangular courtyard wrapped in stone arcades. On one side, the garden lies shrouded in shadows, the shapes of herbs and vegetables barely distinguishable, the neat rows of soil like invisible lines on an invisible page. On the other, the high walls of the abbey loom, sturdy and eternal, their ancient stone kissed by the moonlight that slants across the yard. The air is both empty and full, the emptiness of the night and the fullness of centuries of footsteps, prayers, and whispered confessions that echo faintly in the stone. Each step you take on the cold, uneven flagstones resonates in the silence. The sound is faint, yet in this hallowed space, it feels like a drumbeat, marking the rhythm of your life as it intersects with the centuries-old routines of the monks. Their sandals scrape softly against the stone, a cadence learned over decades, a pattern that synchronizes instinctively with the tolling of distant bells and the faint rustle of robes. Each movement is deliberate, measured, and a quiet testament to discipline. The cold is relentless. It pierces through your cloak, sneaks beneath the folds of your tunic, and reaches your fingers and toes, making them stiff and uncooperative. You draw your arms tighter across your chest, your teeth clattering faintly, and for a moment, you're acutely aware of how reliant you are on each layer of clothing, each piece of wool or linen to stave off the frost. Even as you shiver, you notice how the monks seem unaffected, or perhaps they simply do not acknowledge the cold. Their faces are calm, their movements smooth, their breath steady. The cold is a companion to them, part of the rhythm of monastic life, not an intruder. The cloister is not just a corridor. It is a living classroom, teaching humility and focus. Each arch frames a new segment of night sky. Each column rises, like a silent sentinel observing your passage. The shadows twist and curl under the faint glow of candlelight, creating illusions of movement that vanish when you blink. You find yourself adjusting your gaze constantly, noting the way the moonlight catches the edges of carved stone, highlighting delicate capitals and the moss that stubbornly clings to the northern walls. Even in darkness, the craftsmanship of the builders reveals itself. Every mark, every curve, every chisel stroke tells a story of hands that long ago shaped the stones you now tread upon. Silence reigns supreme. Not the kind of silence that is merely the absence of sound, but a silence that is actively maintained. A silence that breathes along with the monks. You notice the subtle gestures they use to communicate, hands raised to indicate a point, a slight nod to acknowledge understanding, the tilt of a head to indicate a question. Words are unnecessary here. The gestures carry weight and meaning, and in them, you feel both included and humbled. You become aware that sound in this space is precious. A misplaced whisper or a careless shuffle would resonate like thunder. As you walk, the cold penetrates deeper, reaching muscles stiff from long hours of sitting in the dormitory and kneeling during prayers. Each step requires attention, not just to balance, but to endure. The discomfort becomes a meditative focus. You notice the stiffness in your knees, the ache in your back, the chill in your toes. Yet, paradoxically, the physical challenge sharpens the mind. You feel alive, aware of every sense, and acutely present in the ritual of walking. The cloister walk is also an exercise in patience. It stretches minutes into what feels like hours, teaching the body to endure and the mind to observe. You begin to notice details you missed before. The faint crackle of frost on the stones, the subtle creak of a shuttered window as the wind presses against it, the delicate dripping of condensation from the roof tiles. These small sounds, almost imperceptible, become part of the symphony of nightlife in the monastery. The architecture itself is a lesson in practicality and spirituality. The walls are thick to keep out the cold, yet the cloister is open enough to allow air and light to pass through. The stone absorbs the chill during the night and will radiate it back in the early morning, teaching the monks to value warmth when it comes. Each corner of the cloister has a purpose, some for reflection, some for quiet tasks, some for watching the stars in meditation. Every element, every stone, every shadow is deliberate, designed to guide thought, contemplation, and humility. Your eyes adjust to the darkness, and you begin to notice the beauty in the monotony. The repetition of arches and columns creates a rhythm, almost musical in its regularity. The cold, the silence, and the soft candlelight work together to create a sensory meditation. Each inhalation fills your lungs with the crisp night air. Each exhale is a gentle release of tension. Your focus sharpens, your mind unclutters, and the cold becomes less of a punishment and more of a teacher. The cloister walk also brings awareness of impermanence. You notice the frost creeping along the edges of the stone, the wind scouring the garden beds, and the shadows of the night shifting with every flicker of candlelight. Everything is transient, the light, the shadow, the cold. Even your presence here is fleeting in the context of centuries of monastic life. This realization instills both humility and gratitude. You are part of a continuum, a single moment in the long stretch of devotion and discipline that has defined this monastery for generations. Every so often, you pause at the alcoves along the cloister. Some are carved with niches for statues of saints. Others hold small offerings left by monks. A bit of bread, a carved wooden cross, a sprig of rosemary. The items seem insignificant, yet they are imbued with purpose. They remind you that devotion is often expressed in small acts, in details that might seem mundane but carry deep meaning. You see monks kneeling briefly in these alcoves, eyes closed, hands clasped, offering silent prayers. You join them for a moment, feeling the stillness settle into your bones. Time stretches strangely in the cold cloister. Without the distractions of the world, without clocks, without conversation, minutes take on the weight of hours. You notice the subtle shifts in the candlelight, the way shadows move imperceptibly, and you feel your own heartbeat synchronize with the rhythm of the monks' movements. The cold that once seemed intrusive now becomes a companion, a marker of presence and awareness. You walk more deliberately, move more purposefully, and listen more intently. The physical challenge of the walk is inseparable from the spiritual lesson. Your muscles ache, your fingers are numb, and your toes are cold. Yet you find a strange clarity. Pain becomes meditation, awareness becomes prayer, and the cold becomes a teacher rather than an obstacle. Each step, each breath, each shuffle of your sandals contributes to a growing understanding of monastic discipline. The cloister walk also exposes you to the larger rhythm of the abbey. You notice the faint smell of herbs from the garden, the distant hum of the kitchen preparing for the morning meal, and the subtle vibrations of bells ringing in other parts of the monastery. The abbey is alive, but in a quiet, measured way. Every sound, every scent, every movement is part of the monastic ecosystem. You are a participant, aware of how each action, each decision, each breath fits into the larger whole. By the time you return to the dormitory, the cold has seeped deep into your bones, but you carry with you a sense of calm, of awareness, of connection. The cloister has done its work. Your mind is focused, your body alert, and your spirit attuned to the rhythm of the monastery. You step back into your cell, the straw mattress waiting, the woolen blanket providing the first hint of warmth. The bells will toll again, calling you to the next office. But for now, there is a moment of stillness, a pause to reflect, to breathe, and to appreciate the discipline and devotion that surround you. As you leave the cold, echoing corridors of the cloister behind, the faint scent of smoke and dew gives way to the warmer, more complex aromas of the refectory. The long hall stretches before you, simple yet vast, the high beams overhead darkened by centuries of soot and the faint gloss of tallow candles that line the walls in sconces. This is the heart of the monastery, the space where sustenance and ritual intersect, and where the rhythms of monastic life become palpable in every step, every gesture, every sound. The air is thick with the mingled odors of bread baking, watery porridge, and the faint metallic tang of iron utensils worn smooth by generations of use. Each step you take echoes softly on the flagstone floor, announcing your presence without disturbing the stillness that has been cultivated over decades. The long wooden tables are lined like obedient soldiers, each bench set neatly against the wall, each plate and bowl placed with meticulous care. At the head of the whole sits the abbot, his robes immaculate, his gaze steady as he surveys the monks filing in. There is hierarchy here, not in privilege or luxury, but in ritualized respect. The placement of bodies and utensils follows centuries of unspoken tradition, a choreography of discipline and devotion. The cellarer moves like a conductor of this silent orchestra. His hands, deft and purposeful, navigate the long tables, distributing bowls and ladles with precision. Each monk receives the same humbled portions: a chunk of coarse bread, a small piece of cheese, perhaps a spoonful of watery porridge that is simmered slowly over a low flame. The simplicity of the fare is stark, yet it sustains. You notice the absence of indulgence. There is no temptation, no excess, only what is needed to feed the body while the soul tends to higher matters. And yet, even in its simplicity, there is an elegance, a subtle poetry in the unadorned functional tools and dishes that have served countless meals before yours. You take your seat at the table, careful not to disturb the monks already at their places. The benches are hard, polished by years of use, the smell of straw and cloth mingling faintly with the aroma of food. Each monk has a designated spot, a specific location along the table that reinforces their role and rank within the community. You notice how the novices are often seated closer to the center, where the abbot's presence is stronger, while the more experienced monks occupy places along the edges, familiar with the rhythms of the room, confident in their movements and posture. Even here, in the simple act of sitting, order and ritual prevail. The first gesture of the meal is a prayer, a murmur in Latin, brief but deliberate. Heads bow, hands fold, eyes close. The air is still save for the soft murmur of devotion, the only sound in a room otherwise filled with anticipation and subtle movement. No one speaks, not because conversation is forbidden, but because silence amplifies the sacredness of the moment. Every action is deliberate. The lifting of a spoon, the breaking of bread, the careful placement of a bowl. You feel the weight of centuries of ritual in the precision of these movements, each one a quiet act of reverence. The meal begins. You notice the slow rhythm. Hands reach for bread, break it, and pass it along the table with care. Ladles scoop porridge with a soft, clinking sound against the ceramic bowls. Cheese is sliced evenly, distributed with silent precision. The monks eat with their heads bowed, eyes focused on the food before them, yet fully aware of the presence of their neighbors. There is a sense of shared purpose here, a collective mindfulness that turns the mundane act of eating into a ritual of devotion. You take a bite of your own portion, the bread dense and slightly sour, the cheese pungent but satisfying. It is sustenance, yes, but it is also meditation, a practice in humility and presence. As you eat, you become aware of the subtle communication taking place around you. A tilt of the head acknowledges the passing of a bowl. A gentle hand gesture signals readiness for the next ladle. A barely perceptible nod expresses gratitude. These small gestures, unnoticed by the casual observer, are the language of the monastery, an unspoken system that maintains order, respect, and harmony. You find yourself mimicking them unconsciously, participating in this silent dialogue, feeling the rhythm of the community flow through you. The cellarer continues his rounds, attentive and efficient. There is no rush, but there is also no pause. The meal flows as a continuous cycle, bowls filled and emptied, bread distributed and consumed, the room alive with subtle motion, yet wrapped in an almost imperceptible hush. You notice how every movement is synchronized with the next. The scraping of a spoon against a bowl, the soft shuffle of sandals on the floor, the quiet passing of a platter. There is beauty here, in the rhythm and the precision, in the way the monks embody devotion not only in prayer but in the simplest of acts. At intervals, a monk may pause to offer a silent prayer of thanks, his lips moving so softly that the sound is barely perceptible. These prayers are both personal and communal, interwoven with the fabric of the room. You feel the energy of centuries of devotion echoing in these moments, the weight of tradition palpable in the air. Each bite, each sip, each gesture is infused with mindfulness, a practice that transforms sustenance into something sacred. The monotony of the simple meal is deceptive. There is a subtle education here, patience, attentiveness, and gratitude. You realize that in a place where life is regimented, every small action is an opportunity to practice devotion. Even the act of drinking from the communal cup or passing a shared loaf of bread becomes a lesson in humility, generosity, and respect for others. You feel yourself slowing down, matching the pace of the monks, allowing the cadence of the meal to guide your awareness. The silence of the refectory is punctuated only by the natural sounds of eating, the soft crunch of bread, the gentle scrape of a spoon, the barely audible sip of thin broth. Occasionally, a bowl is placed on the table with a quiet thud, a sound that seems almost ceremonial in the context of this ritual. You notice how even the smallest noises are magnified, how the stillness heightens your awareness of each sensory detail, the warmth of the soup, the rough texture of the bread, the faint tallow scent clinging to the air. As the meal concludes, the cellarer moves among the monks, collecting bowls and utensils with the same careful precision as he distributed them. Each monk rises in turn, offering a silent gesture of thanks, a subtle bow of the head, a hand pressed to the chest. The ritual is complete, yet the atmosphere remains charged with the quiet intensity of devotion. You feel a deep sense of satisfaction, not merely from the food, but from the practice of mindfulness, from the act of participating in a tradition that has endured for centuries. After the refectory duties, you make your way back to your cell. The stone floors are cold beneath your feet, and the faint draft from the corridor brushes against your face. You notice the smell of the evening incense mingled with the lingering aroma of bread, the subtle tallow residue from the candles. As you settle onto your straw mattress, you reflect on the refectory's lessons, the beauty of simplicity, the discipline embedded in routine, and the profound impact of mindfulness practiced in every gesture. You close your eyes, but your thoughts linger on the rhythm of the refectory, the silent choreography, the communal energy, the careful attention to the small acts that make up a life devoted to God. Even in this mundane task of eating, there is a sacred rhythm, a lesson in presence that extends beyond the walls of the monastery. You feel the weight of the night pressing gently around you, a soft reminder that in this world, devotion is measured not only in prayer and study, but in the way one carries out every action, however small. The rituals of the refectory have left an indelible impression on you. You have witnessed a microcosm of monastic life, the balance between individual focus and communal cohesion, the blending of sustenance and spirituality, the practice of patience and gratitude in even the simplest of acts. These are lessons that extend beyond the monastery, principles that you can carry with you into the world outside, if you can ever leave the calm, measured rhythm of this sacred space. After the evening meal, when the last spoonful of watery porridge has been swallowed and the silent nods of thanks exchanged, the monks disperse according to their duties. Some return to their cells for quiet reflection, to pray alone in the flickering candlelight, or to meditate on the day's labors and the words of the Psalms. But for the scribes, for those entrusted with the painstaking work of the scriptorium, the night has only just begun. This is the room where devotion meets craft, where patience becomes a tangible act, and where the sacred intersects with the human in the form of ink, parchment, and quill. You follow them, the stone corridors cold beneath your feet, the air carrying the faint, lingering aromas of bread and tallow from the refectory. When you enter the scriptorium, you are immediately struck by the contrast between the solemnity of the work and the quiet intensity that fills the room. Candlelight flickers across the stone walls, casting long, wavering shadows that dance and twist with each movement. Every desk is meticulously arranged, each monk hunched over a wooden surface, quill in hand, eyes fixed upon the parchment before them. The scratch of quills is constant, rhythmic, a soft background music that binds the room together. Occasionally, a whisper of prayer escapes, quiet, reverent, almost as if the walls themselves demand that sound be controlled, measured, sacred. The scriptorium is cold, colder than the dormitory, the chill seeping from the stone walls and flagstone floor. Your fingers stiffen, your breath visible in the dim light, but the warmth of purpose flows around you. Each monk, lost in their labor, seems unaware of time. There is a rhythm here, a cadence that has persisted for generations. Dip the quill into the ink, carefully trace the letters onto the page, pause, glance at a guide or exemplar, adjust the posture, breathe. Continue. The smallest errors are unacceptable. Each stroke carries weight. A misplaced line, a smudged word, or a crooked flourish is not just a blemish on parchment. It is a disruption of devotion, a flaw in the sacred transmission of knowledge. As you take your place at a desk, your own quill trembling slightly in your hand, you become acutely aware of the scents around you, the iron tang of ink, the warm, slightly acrid odor of tallow candles, the faint must of parchment that has absorbed centuries of moisture and air. Each inhalation carries the weight of history, each exhale a reminder of your place among those who have labored in silence for generations. You dip your quill, and the ink bleeds onto the page in delicate lines, the Latin text unfolding under your hand with a precision that demands focus and care. Your own strokes are imperfect, but the act itself becomes meditative, connecting you with the monks and their centuries-old ritual. The illumination of manuscripts is an art form in itself. You watch as a monk carefully applies gold leaf to a miniature illustration, pressing it gently onto the page with a specialized tool. The light catches the gold, and for a moment, the entire room seems to shimmer with an ethereal glow. The designs are intricate, twisting vines, delicate floral motifs, interlacing letters, and sacred symbols rendered in brilliant color. Every ornamentation is deliberate, every detail meaningful. The artistry is not just decorative. It is didactic, symbolic, and devotional. Each image is a window into the divine, a visual exegesis of the sacred texts that the monks are copying. The pace of work is relentless, yet measured. There is no rush, no sense of urgency other than the natural passage of time. The scribes work until their eyes ache, until the candle wax pools at the base of the holder, until the cold begins to bite at their fingers. Even then, they persevere, moving slowly and deliberately, as if the act of creation itself is a form of prayer. You notice the subtle ways they adjust their posture, lean closer to the light, or shift their hands to avoid cramps. Each movement is practiced, almost ritualized, honed by years of repetition. Despite the silence, the scriptorium is alive. There is a vibrancy in the air, a shared focus that unites the monks in purpose. The slight rustle of robes, the occasional cough, the soft scratching of quills, all blend into a symphony of devotion. It is a soundscape that is both calming and demanding, encouraging concentration while simultaneously reminding you of the presence of others, of the communal nature of the work. You feel both isolated and connected, alone in your task, yet part of a larger, continuous lineage of scribes who have kept the sacred words alive. The physicality of the labor is demanding. Your back aches from the hunched position, your eyes strain to follow the small, precise letters, and your hand cramps from holding the quill. Yet, with each completed line, there is a quiet satisfaction, a sense of participation in something far greater than yourself. The act of writing, of preserving text, becomes a meditation, a dialogue with the centuries, a link in a chain that connects you with those who came before and those who will follow. You notice the discipline required to maintain focus. Distraction is not an option. The slightest lapse can lead to errors that must be painstakingly corrected. There is an almost sacred rhythm to every action. Quill in hand, ink carefully applied, letters formed with intention, page reviewed, adjustments made. This discipline is mirrored in the prayers that punctuate the day and the night, in the silent gestures between monks, in the measured pace of each movement. The scriptorium is a crucible for patience, concentration, and reverence. Every now and then, a monk will pause to offer a brief prayer or recitation, acknowledging the divine in the act of writing. You may catch a whispered Deo gratias or a soft invocation for guidance. These moments are fleeting, yet they anchor the labor in its spiritual purpose. The text is not merely written, it is consecrated, imbued with devotion, and transformed from mere words into a vessel of faith. The atmosphere is further enriched by the subtle interplay of light and shadow. The flickering candles cast moving patterns across the stone walls, across the faces of the monks, across the parchment itself. The light dances over the intricate illuminations, making them seem to shimmer and come alive. The shadows create an intimacy, a sense of enclosure and safety, while also reminding you of the centuries of work that have occurred within these very walls. As the night deepens, you become more attuned to the subtleties of the scriptorium. The faint creak of a floorboard, the soft scratch of a quill, the whisper of robes brushing against stone are magnified in the stillness. The cold air sharpens your senses, making you more aware of each movement, each sound, each detail. There is a rhythm here, a cadence that is both hypnotic and grounding, a meditation in motion. Time seems to stretch and compress simultaneously. Hours pass in what feels like minutes. Yet each minute is densely packed with the weight of centuries of devotion. You may glance at a completed page, marveling at the clarity and precision of the work, and then realize that the next line awaits, equally demanding, equally sacred. The act of copying, illuminating, preserving is a form of endurance, a practice that shapes the mind, the body, and the spirit. Eventually, as the candles burn lower and the chill grows more pronounced, the monks begin to prepare to leave the scriptorium. They carefully place their quills down, close the inkpots, and arrange the pages they've worked on with reverent hands. There is a sense of completion, of temporary rest, but not finality. The work will continue the next day, and the day after that, in an unbroken chain of devotion. As you leave, the quiet still lingers, a soft hum of activity just below the threshold of sound. The scriptorium is a place where history, devotion, and human endurance intersect, where the act of writing becomes both a spiritual and practical exercise, and where each monk, each stroke of the quill, is a small miracle of dedication. You step back into the colder corridor, the flickering candlelight fading behind you, and you carry with you the profound weight of centuries, the reverence for meticulous labor, and a new appreciation for the quiet, sacred work that sustains the life of the monastery. Back in the dormitory, the night deepens, and the silence settles over the abbey like a thick, comforting blanket. The air in the room is still. The only sounds, the occasional rustle of robes, the soft shuffle of sandals against cold stone, and the faint murmur of prayers that rise in whispered devotion. Silence in the monastery is not simply the absence of noise. It's a sacred practice, woven into the very fabric of monastic life. It's a silence that is both a refuge and a challenge, a tool for devotion and focus, a way to commune with the divine while shutting out the world outside. In this silence, there is a profound depth. It is not a void or emptiness, but a living, breathing presence that invites reflection, contemplation, and prayer. You are not merely instructed to keep quiet. You are called to embrace it as a way of life, an essential aspect of your relationship with God, the community, and the sacred space in which you dwell. For the monks, silence is an act of reverence toward God, toward one another, and toward the tasks at hand. It is an art that is practiced not just in the grand moments of prayer, but in every small, deliberate action that fills the day. Every gesture, every movement is done with intention, with purpose, and with a deep awareness of its place in the holy rhythm of monastic life. As the monks retire to their cells for the night, you begin to see the ways in which this silence is maintained. Even in the dormitory, where you would expect the noise of movement, the chatter of exhausted voices, and the occasional grunt of discomfort, there is an eerie quiet. The beds, made from straw and simple wood, are close together, too close for personal space. But in this sacred silence, proximity does not feel like intrusion. Instead, it fosters a sense of communion, an unspoken understanding that you are not isolated, but part of a larger, shared devotion. You lie down on your bed, the straw poking uncomfortably through your blanket, and the cold stone floor pressing against your back. But it's the silence that strikes you most, how it fills the room, wraps around you, and offers a kind of peace that is hard to explain. In the dark, you become keenly aware of the monks' movements. They are almost ghost-like in their quietude, gliding silently across the room as they prepare for rest. A hand raised in a silent gesture is enough to indicate a request. A small bow or nod of the head communicates respect and deference. Words are almost unnecessary. Everything is understood through the smallest of signals. It's a system of communication that, while foreign to you, feels profoundly fitting in this environment where words have weight and every action is measured. In the monastery, there is no need for constant verbal exchange. The silence says everything that needs to be said. You begin to notice how the monks communicate through subtle gestures. A monk may place a hand on his chest in a sign of prayer, or lift a finger to his lips in a reminder of the vow of silence. There is no shouting, no outbursts of laughter, no loud debates. Instead, there are eyes meeting, hands clasping in prayer, and heads tilting in acknowledgement. Even the simplest of movements, the brushing of a hand against the rough wool of a habit, the flick of a robe as someone walks past, becomes a part of the larger dance of reverence. These movements, though small, carry meaning. They are a way of showing care for the sacred space, for the community, and for the sanctity of silence itself. It is in these silent gestures that the true spirit of monastic life begins to reveal itself. The monks are not isolated individuals going about their own separate tasks. They are a community bound together by the vow of silence, by their shared devotion, and by their shared practices. They rely on one another, not just for physical needs, but for spiritual sustenance as well. Silence is not a retreat from the world, but an invitation to deeper communion, both with God and with each other. It is a way of giving oneself fully to the rhythm of the monastery, where every gesture, every movement, and every breath becomes an offering. As you prepare for bed, you feel the weight of this silence pressing in on you. You may be alone in your cell, but you are not lonely. The quiet offers a sense of comfort, even as it becomes a challenge. Your mind, unused to such stillness, begins to wander. You can feel your body tense, the silence making you aware of every small noise, the rustling of your blanket, the creak of the floorboards, the distant sound of the bell tolling again. This time for the night office lauds. These small sounds, so ordinary in the outside world, seem magnified in the stillness of the monastery. But in this space, even your wandering thoughts are part of the devotion, part of the rhythm of life here. As you settle into the cold stone of your cell, your body aching from the hard floor, you find yourself longing for sleep. But the silence keeps you awake, the weight of it pressing down on you like the stone walls that surround you. It is not just the physical discomfort of your bed that keeps you awake. It is the stillness itself, the lack of sound, the absence of anything to fill the space between your thoughts. In the monastery, even sleep becomes an act of devotion, an offering of rest to God. But it is not an easy offering. It is interrupted, disrupted by the bell tolls, by the quiet prayers of the monks, by the presence of the divine in the stillness. The silence, though comforting in its own way, also feels isolating. The world outside seems distant, closed off by the high stone walls of the abbey, and you are left to face yourself in the quiet. In the stillness, your thoughts rise to the surface. Unbidden, the doubts, the temptations, the concerns that usually remain buried under the noise of daily life now come to the forefront. You wonder if the monks ever struggle with this silence, if they ever feel the weight of their own thoughts pressing down on them. But there is no answer. Only the silence remains, profound and unyielding. In the absence of words, you find yourself listening to the sound of your own breathing, the rhythm of your chest rising and falling in the darkness. You are aware of the space around you, the rough stone walls, the straw beneath you, the thin woolen blanket that does little to keep out the chill. There is no luxury here, no comfort. There is only the stillness, the silence, and the knowledge that you are part of something much larger than yourself. As you close your eyes and drift into a restless sleep, you realize that this is what the monks have dedicated their lives to: the silence, the simplicity, the devotion. It is a life of sacrifice, a life of service, and a life that requires both strength and humility. The silence is not just the absence of sound. It is the absence of distractions, of worldly concerns, of the noise that fills your mind during the day. And in that absence, you find a deeper connection to the divine, to the community, and to yourself. In the quiet, you are free to reflect, to pray, and to seek the peace that can only come in the stillness. But as you lie there, a sense of longing creeps in. The silence is heavy, and though it brings a sense of peace, it also makes you realize just how noisy the world is outside the monastery walls. The bells, the chants, the whispers of prayers. They are all part of the rhythm, part of the devotion, but they also serve as reminders that, for all the silence, there is a constant underlying hum of activity. The monastery is not a place of isolation. It is a place of connection, of shared devotion, of silence and action working together in harmony. As you lie in your bed of straw, your body sinking slightly into the coarse mattress, the silence of the monastery presses down on you. It's an all-encompassing stillness, but not one that feels peaceful. Rather, it's a silence filled with the weight of the countless prayers that have been said in this place before you. The thick stone walls seem to absorb every sound, leaving you with the sensation that the world outside is a distant memory, no longer within reach. You can hear nothing but the rhythmic beating of your own heart and the distant echo of the monks, long since gone to their cells. Their movements are a quiet symphony, one you can't hear but can only feel through the vibrations in the air, the faint hum of their collective devotion. As the monastery's silence wraps itself around you, you try to sleep, but the thoughts won't stop. The peace that you sought seems to slip further away as your mind races. The weight of your day's actions, your life, and the strange sense of being part of something much larger than yourself all come flooding back. You wonder if the monks too struggle with sleep, if they too wrestle with doubt and the quieter, more human temptations in the dark hours before dawn. Do they find rest, or do they, like you, lie awake in the quiet of the night, listening to their own thoughts and questioning their place in the divine order? The questions swirl, but the silence drowns out any answers. In the cold stillness of the stone cell, your body longs for the comforting embrace of sleep. The straw bed, though uncomfortable and stiff, should, in theory, offer some relief. Yet, with each passing minute, you realize that this monastery has its own rhythm, its own logic. The hours are not just marked by the ringing of bells, but by the continuous calls of prayer, by the deepening silence of reflection. Sleep here is not restful. It is a brief pause between sacred rituals, an interlude that feels like it is meant for contemplation, not for rest. The monks, believe that dreams are a sacred form of communication. They are not merely the result of a restless mind, but messages from the divine. Every monk is taught to keep careful watch over their dreams, to seek meaning, interpretation, and perhaps even warnings or blessings hidden within the folds of their nighttime visions. To dream is to commune with the divine, to be reminded of your vow, your discipline, your path. The monks are taught that their dreams are sacred, that the mind during sleep is another realm where the spirit is free to move between the earthly and the heavenly. The dreams of a monk are never trivial or meaningless. They are as much a part of the monastic practice as the psalms they recite, the prayers they chant, and the silence they cultivate. And yet, lying in your bed in the stillness of the night, you can't help but wonder whether these dreams, which the monks hold in such reverence, are always pure. Are there temptations in their sleep? As you stare at the low ceiling, your mind flits from one thought to the next. What if a monk, in the quiet of his own slumber, is tempted by something other than devotion? What if the mind, which is supposed to be sanctified, starts to wander toward the desires of the flesh? Is there room for worldly thoughts even in this place where prayer is supposed to keep them at bay? Could the monks, just like you, wrestle with the lure of the world outside temptations from which they have sought refuge? The walls of the monastery are meant to keep the world at bay. But what if the world keeps creeping in, even into your dreams? You think of the legends, those stories monks have told for centuries, about visions of angels and devils, saints and sinners. Are the temptations of the flesh truly something that can be buried beneath prayer and fasting? Or are they simply suppressed, lying in wait for the dark hours? Even in the sacred space of a monastery, could the mind betray the soul? Could the silence itself, so sacred and still, become a canvas for dark thoughts, desires, and doubts that never truly go away? In the quiet of the cell, with the night stretching endlessly before you, the more you think, the more restless you become. The shadows seem to shift, stretching across the stone walls as if they too are alive, moving with a pulse you cannot see but can certainly feel. The cold stone beneath you, once a foundation of stability, now seems to press against you with a new weight. Perhaps you think the real challenge of monastic life is not just keeping your vows or remaining pious in the light of day. It is the constant struggle against your own humanity, the temptation to abandon the silence and the vows in favor of worldly comfort. What if your thoughts, your desires, are as much a part of the monastic experience as the prayers and the devotion? After all, A monk is not immune to the same human instincts that you carry with you. Their vows are meant to protect them, to guide them. But there's something about the silence of the night, something about the stillness and isolation that stirs the soul. And what if, just once, in that vulnerable space between sleep and wakefulness, the devil itself whispers in your ear? You think back to the monk who spoke of temptation. He had mentioned that the devil is always present, just as the divine is always there to guide you. The balance is precarious. It's not enough to simply recite prayers or chant psalms. It is in the spaces between those prayers, the moments of stillness, where temptation can be the loudest. You wonder if the monks, in their humble pursuit of holiness, have ever given in to those whispers. The silence seems to mock you now, its stillness broken only by your racing thoughts. How does one ever find peace in a place like this, where silence is not just a void but a constant, an unbroken ritual that demands your attention, your reverence, your complete surrender? As you lie there, in the midst of the deep, cold silence, you remind yourself that the monks have endured far worse. They've survived the long days of labor, the fasting, the self-denial, and the rigorous prayer. And yet, here in the silence, you understand that the greatest challenge is not the cold stone beneath you, nor the hard straw that serves as your bed. It's the quiet itself, the constant hum of devotion, and the quiet battle between flesh and spirit, between prayer and temptation. In this monastery, sleep is not an escape. It is an act of faith, a brief surrender to the peaceful rhythm of devotion, even in the face of your own restless mind. You try once more to sleep. You close your eyes and attempt to silence the racing thoughts. The straw rustles beneath you as you shift, trying to find comfort. The sound of the night, punctuated by the distant toll of bells, settles into a gentle lull. The temptation of the flesh, the distraction of your mind, fades for a moment. Perhaps, you think, this is the purpose of the silence: to train the mind, to focus it on the divine, to rid oneself of all that is unnecessary. And yet, even as sleep starts to overtake you, you can't shake the feeling that the battle between temptation and devotion will continue as long as the bells keep ringing. As the darkness of the night lingers, you lie there, staring at the rough stone ceiling of your small cell, waiting for the inevitable. It is as if the monastery itself is holding its breath, preparing to exhale the first breath of morning. The silence is profound, broken only by the sound of your own breathing and the occasional rustle of a fellow monk shifting in the darkness. Time is no longer marked by the ticking of a clock, but by the toll of the bells and the rhythm of the prayers. The night, which seemed to stretch on endlessly, is finally beginning to recede. You watch as the faintest light begins to creep through the small, narrow window in your cell. The first rays of the morning sun are not yet visible, but the soft glow of dawn seeps through the cracks in the stone, casting a pale, ethereal light across the floor. It's a light that feels almost sacred, a symbol of the new day that awaits. The silence, though still thick, begins to feel different, a signal that the world is stirring, preparing for another day of devotion. The bells toll once more, their resonating sound, a sharp reminder that the day is about to begin. You rise from your bed of straw, stiff from the cold stone beneath you. The muscles in your back protest, aching from the unyielding surface you've just spent the night on. But you push through. You've learned that discomfort is part of the life here. It is a constant, a reminder that luxury has no place in this humble existence. As you move, the coldness of the stone floor beneath your bare feet sends a shiver up your spine. But it's a familiar feeling, one that you've come to accept as part of the monastic rhythm. The chapel, where the monks gather for their morning prayers, is already illuminated by the soft glow of flickering candles. The light is dim, but it's enough to reveal the high stone walls and the austere beauty of the space. You can feel the weight of the centuries pressing down as you step into the chapel. This place has witnessed countless prayers, countless moments of reflection, and it is steeped in the devotion of those who have come before you. The monks have already gathered, standing in rows with their heads bowed in reverence, awaiting the start of the chapter. You join them, taking your place among the others, and feel the stillness settle over you once again. The air is heavy with the scent of incense, thick and earthy, swirling around the chapel like a tangible presence. The cold stone beneath your feet seems to ground you, reminding you of the simplicity of this life. There is nothing here to distract you from the task at hand, nothing but devotion and prayer. In the chapter, each monk begins to read aloud from the Psalms, the words flowing in a rhythm that is both meditative and powerful. The Psalms are the foundation of monastic life, a constant source of reflection and worship. Each verse is recited with solemnity, and the voices of the monks blend together in a harmonious chorus. The sound fills the chapel, reverberating off the stone walls and surrounding you with a deep, resonant peace. As you listen, you realize that the night was never truly a time for rest. It was a time of preparation, a time to ready yourself for the sacred work of the day. The monastery, with its cold stone walls and its silence, is more than just a place of rest. It is a space for devotion, a place where every moment is an opportunity for prayer, reflection, and communion with the divine. The ritual of the dawn chapter is simple, yet profound. It is not a grand ceremony, but a quiet, humble act of faith. The monks recite their prayers, each one following the same pattern, each one performing this sacred act with the same devotion that has been passed down for centuries. There is no rush, no hurry. The words are spoken slowly, deliberately, each syllable carrying weight. The rhythm of the prayers flows like a river, steady and constant, never wavering. It is a rhythm that guides the monks through the day, a rhythm that connects them to something greater than themselves. As you stand there, reciting the Psalms along with the other monks, you begin to feel the deep sense of unity that permeates this space. The words of the prayer are not just your own. They are the words of everyone in the chapel, echoing together in a chorus of devotion. There is a sense of solidarity here, a shared purpose that binds the monks together. You are not alone in your prayers, not alone in your devotion. There is a quiet strength in this collective act, a strength that comes from the shared rhythm of the monastic life. In the quiet moments between prayers, you are reminded of the beauty of this life, the simplicity of its purpose. The days here are not filled with distractions or the noise of the outside world. There are no phones, no emails, no meetings. There is only the rhythm of prayer, the quiet devotion of the monks, and the peace that comes from dedicating yourself to something greater than the mundane concerns of the world. The Dawn chapter is a reminder that the monastic life is not about comfort or ease. It is about devotion, discipline, and humility. It is about surrendering yourself to the will of the divine and embracing the simplicity of this life. There are no grand gestures here, no elaborate rituals. There is only the quiet act of devotion, the steady rhythm of prayer, and the deep peace that comes from knowing you are part of something eternal. As the chapter comes to a close, the monks rise, their prayers completed for the moment. The stillness of the chapel settles once more, and you feel the quiet embrace of the space. The day has begun, and with it comes the promise of more prayer, more work, and more devotion. You know that this is just the beginning, that the rhythm of the monastic life will continue throughout the day, each moment offering an opportunity for devotion and reflection. As you leave the chapel and return to your cell, you are filled with a sense of peace, but also with a quiet anticipation. The day is just beginning, and the rhythm of the monastery will continue. Each prayer, each task, each moment, a part of a larger, eternal whole. You may have started the night seeking rest, but now you understand that in the monastery, rest is not the ultimate goal. It is the moments of prayer, the work, the silence, and the devotion that shape the true peace of this life. And with each passing day, you will continue to walk this path of devotion, step by step, prayer by prayer, always guided by the rhythm of the bells and the steady call to prayer.